They're here to save the world because we are not alone.
There's a scene in Close Encounters when Richard Dreyfuss's character tells two other people that they should try sculpture if they want to understand the geography of a location better.
Next time, try sculpturing.
I totally sympathize with that, because until you're trying a diorama like this, you don't really understand the 3D relationship of everything. For instance, I had a photo that showed this approximate view.
Funny story about that photo. I had spent about 3 hours one day watching the movie and plotting exactly where every car was, and I made myself a little graphic. And then, being proud of the work I had done, I shared it with Derek Osborne, and he goes, yeah, you might like this photo, and sends it to me. I was like, well, number one, thanks. Number two, you do realize this is flipped mirror image? You know, having just done the work, I could tell at a glance. And he goes, oh, we didn't catch that when we used it in the documentary.
One day, as I'm watching the movie, I realize that these lines on the street do not correspond to the lines seen in a matte painting of a terror dog looking down at Dana when she crosses into the building. But the lines on the street that do correspond were one block over. And if you zoom into the upper right corner of the frame, you can actually see the parking lot of Tavern on the Green. Which means that shot of Dana's taxi pulling up when seen from Gargoyle Height was not actually shot at 55 Central Park West. It was shot one block over at 65 Central Park West. And then the close-up of Sigourney getting out of the taxi was shot in the correct spot. They shot part of it here and shot part of it here, and then with the magic of editing, they made it look like one location. That's one block difference. It's not that big of a deal, because in this movie, there's all kinds of shots where you jump from LA to New York instantaneously. When you see Ecto 1 and its police escort coming from Columbus Circle, you see a fire truck parked in front of this building. This is 50 Central Park West, also known as the Prasada. Now, 50 Central Park West is also the apartment building from the movie 3 Men and a Baby, which might explain why they can't ever find that ghost boy up in the window, because of all the spectral activity over here in Spook Central. So in the credit where credit is due department, big thanks to Richard Ridley for finding me the Code 3 collectible fire trucks that were perfect for the one parked in front of 55 Central Park West and also the one parked in front of the Prasada. They differ slightly from one another, so he was able to find me two, one that matched each. Now, their numbers on their doors are not what's seen in the movie, but otherwise they are virtually identical. Big thanks to Richard for that. He also was the one that found me the police sawhorses from Greenlight, and we had a lot of conversations about those Greenlight police cars. And speaking of police cars, here's a fun fact. I learned this a couple of years ago from the IMCDB, the Internet Movie Car Database. Car number 1958, Precinct 41, is not only the number of the car that goes down into the sinkhole in Ghostbusters, it is the number of a car at the beginning of the movie Fort Apache, the Bronx. So recently, I was trying to find out who was the fan that owned an incredible-looking replica car of Precinct 41, car 1958, that they were using in a parade, and I posted on the GB Fans page on Facebook. Somebody said, oh, I don't know, but if you find it, you should contact Joe Cirillo, and tagged him in it, and he saw this. And then later on in the conversation, he made the comment, yeah, I had a small role in Fort Apache, the Bronx. I was like, oh, that is too cool. So not only does he appear in Ghostbusters, not only does he appear in a Saturday Night Live episode when Buckwheat got shot, but he's also in Fort Apache, the Bronx, along with another car, 1958, from Precinct 41, which, by the way, is Bronx, not Manhattan.
Now you may notice that the Greenlight car is only one digit off, 1957 instead of 1958. A couple of years later, they brought out a version that you could customize yourself with whatever number you wanted, but that was after I'd already ground down the front end of one of the 1957s. And I was a little bit hesitant to grind down another car.
I was actually staying at the house in Mississippi when I ground down that police car. I found my dad's old grinder in the closet, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I'm down there in the basement. I had the basement door open. And I'm grinding, and all of a sudden the disc flies off the grinder and hits me in the face. And I thought, I could die doing this, and everybody that I know is like an hour and 15 minutes away from me, so maybe I should work on this at home.
On a side note, when I was staying at that house in Mississippi, I took a little die-cast truck that looked exactly like the one my grandfather drove when I was a kid and took a picture of it in front of the house. Later, I found out there was a truck like that in the streets of New York in 1989 when they filmed this stock footage outside of Peter's apartment for Ghostbusters 2. So I had to include that truck in my diorama. Big thanks to my mom for the loan of the farmhouse. This is a little model railroad house. It's got a light on the inside, and it actually belongs to my great nephew, Houston, but Mom loaned it to me as long as I was very, very careful with it.
Additionally, big thank you to my nephew Tucker Hammock for his photos of the buildings on Central Park West. He was living in New York during 2020, COVID, and there were hardly any people on the streets. And he said, "Hey, are there any photos you need?" And I said, "As a matter of fact," and usually I only had to paint out like 1 or 2 people per photo that he took. So these were incredible empty street photos that he was able to get for me. Then I had a crazy idea that for the cars in front of 50 Central Park West, maybe I should try to duplicate what was seen on the model street for Stay Puft at 1/18th scale. The audio you're about to hear is not a sound effect, it was live. Whoops, I just noticed the Camaro has fallen off of the tow truck. Not gonna lie, even in miniature, after that wreck in 2015, I get nervous seeing an Ecto on a trailer. Brakes, brakes, where are the brakes?